Ay, ay, they might ban me for this song, ay, but this is how I'm rocking. Can't be trans cause it ain't real. They need a mental asylum. Say the truth, they look at me like I'm the one with the problem, but they mess with little kids. That's why pedophilia rising, but that's what happens when you give an inch to the gays. Promoting sin instead of telling them they should change the ways. They make you wear a mask, you comply, that remind me of slaves. Got my order wrong at McDonald's, thinking you need a raise. I'm about to break the meter, two-way got my heater. Hey, I don't wear Nike, I only rock Adidas. Hey, I'm in the street, yeah, and most of y'all just tweet us. Hey, and false teachers, so Bryson got a teal. If a man dress like a woman, then it should be a crime. If you impersonate a cop, then they gon' give you some time. Say you a queen, but all you do is twerk and show your behind. And people think you a 10, but you ain't worth a dime. You scared of COVID, but you around like...
Oh, apparently you guys were beefing on Twitter, and somebody asked me if I wanted to moderate a debate between you two.
I'm gonna be honest. I gotta set the record straight. We weren't beefing. I was spurging out on Twitter, screaming into the void. I was screaming into the void because I was very angry on Twitter because I was drinking on a Thursday night and scrolling Twitter. That's how these things work. Every debate I've ever been in is because I got mad and drunk, and now sober me has to deal with it. So I got specifically mad about a specific article about a Texas school who took down pride stickers, and about the, in the context of a lot of like anti-LGBTQ legislation around the country. And I want someone to defend it, because all the defenses that I've seen from conservatives about these bills have been either nonsensical or contradictory or leading to really fucked up things. It's so, yeah, I kind of wanted to talk to somebody about it face to face.
Okay. Is this specifically in the context of the Florida Don't Say Trans bill, or is this going to focus more on that Texas removing the stickers?
The impetus was the article in Texas about like removing the pride stickers, but it can branch out into the broader legislation as well. That's where it goes.
Okay. All right. Well, do you? I don't do that opening statement bullshit or whatever. So the affirmative here is Jangles. I guess you basically have laid out that you want to hear a valid defense of where do you want to focus the conversation on?
Folks, I think that there is no argument that you can make for this that isn't just incredibly rooted in homophobia.
When you say this, I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
So what you put in the Discord, you said the topic would be is it appropriate to push LGBT or pride agenda in schools, essentially? Is that a fair topic? I'm okay with
essentially. A little loaded to say push an agenda, but I guess.
Well, okay, whatever. Is it appropriate to spread LGBT ideology? Is that? I mean, I'm not
just
trying
loading
to,
the other barrel with that one.
I like that one.
I'm not trying to load anymore.
Go for it.
It's an ideology. It's
Let's
LGBT.
do it. Yeah.
Is it fair to spread this in schools? That's the question. Is that?
Hell yeah.
And I'm
the affirmative on that.
Sure. Can I want to ask a clarifying thing before this gets off, just so that we're all in agreement. I'm probably going to do this a lot because these conversations get very nebulous. When we say LGBT agenda, what are we talking about? What does that mean?
Maybe that's why I said let's rephrase and just say the ideology. The ideology of tolerance and acceptance of homosexuality and the rest of it.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Okay.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, do you want to go first, or you want me to? I mean, I could give a quick opening, but if we don't want to do that, I don't care. It's fine.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I mean, yeah. Generally, what I interpret the question of is it appropriate to spread the ideology in schools and whatnot, or even in just the greater society, is this moral? Is this good? Ought we do this? Or is it bad? Obviously, I argue in the affirmative that it's bad, and I do apply deontological Christian ethics to that for my standards of morality, but obviously you do not, so I'm not going to force you into that conversation. I'm actually willing to operate in the progressive work, which I can only imagine is like a utilitarian, consequential standard of morality. Is that a fair representation? Like the outcomes are what matters.
I'm not enough of a nerd to know exactly what consequentialist utilitarianism is.
Okay, so generally,
I think that there is no moral wrong with being queer. So I want to say queer instead of trying to fumble through LGBTQ every time.
How do you come to that conclusion? Just so I can understand
because I cannot understand any way, shape, or form how this would cause harm to anyone else. And in fact, it seems to let people live more authentic lives. So, for example, I would be miserable if I was forced to be straight. I'm very glad that I know the people that I do. I'm very glad that I'm married to the person that I am. And taking that away from me and removing that as an option would be an incredibly net negative on my life. And so I am kind of glad that we just skipped to like, okay, we're being gay is morally wrong, like being queer is morally wrong, and now we're building legislation based on that instead of trying to work backwards, like, oh, we don't want the sexuality taught in schools or anything like that. I'm glad we were able to skip straight there.
But what it sounds like, so effectively you say like it's not morally wrong because it doesn't cause harm to anybody. So like your standards for morality are like harm and net negative like outcomes. Like does that? I mean, is this a fair representation of your worldview?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And
not only does it not cause net harms, it's the adoption of more tolerance and a greater acceptance of queer identities it only causes good. Like it helps.
Yeah. I got it. Okay. And when you say good, you mean like better outcomes for society, better outcomes for people, that kind of thing.
Better outcomes for the people in society. So
I this is where I said I'm willing to operate in this framework, though I don't actually hold to it. But there is some overlap here, and when it comes to deontological standards for morality or consequentialist standards for morality, the overlap is that increasing birth rates is overall a net good thing for society because we are in a global birth rate decline by every metric in every developed country around the world, with very few exceptions, and that is just a net negative, and it's just bad by any metric of morality. By any standard of morality, because more people means more people in the workforce, more supply lines, more food supply, better medical, technological advancements, all these things, more relationships, more things to do. It's just better for people, right?
So let's entertain this notion that a higher birth rate is morally intrinsically good. I don't see how queer identities would like harm that.
No,
because the reason the birth rates are falling is not because like there are more and more queer people. It's a lot of like economic things. It's hard. It's more expensive to raise a kid. It takes longer for more people to like get into a stable financial situation, to create an environment where it's good to raise a kid. So if you're worried about birth rates, those are the factors that would seem to have the most impact, not your identity. Plus, queer people can still have kids and can still raise kids. Like they're like. If it was just about birth rates, we wouldn't have so many kids in the foster care system or in need of adoption. Like queer parents can make good, loving, supportive families, and we can still raise children. So I don't see how like addressing queer identities has any impact on birth rates.
Yeah. So my argument is effectively like, yes, there are other metrics for why the birth rate goes down, but we can look at the population and where it is today. We got like a lot of boomers that are, approaching their retirement stage. They're already in retirement and are effectively just dying off because they're old. And we've got a decreased birth rate amongst our younger generation, who is the most fertile generation. But we also see that the population of LGBT from the boomers, who are, it's like less than 1%, and like Gen X is like less than 5%, but then millennials and Gen Z, we've got 10, 15, 20% population that is LGBT. This is 20% of our population that is a non-reproducing sect of the population, and not by incapability.
Again, that's incorrect.
By unwillingness to reproduce.
Well, that's incorrect.
What's incorrect?
Like the whole the 20% of LGBT can't reproduce.
Yeah, I didn't say they can't. I said they're unwilling to.
Unwilling to.
I said it's not by their incapabilities. It's by their unwillingness to, because they prefer the same sex.
Well, thanks to capitalism, I can buy me a baby mama.
Then we can talk about that in a second.
Just as a quick aside, I just want to say that when we say LGBT aren't able to or aren't willing to reproduce, there is a B in there for bisexual. Like some of these people also, technically lesbians, could be like surrogate mothers and stuff. I don't know if that makes a huge difference, but just some of those people will be reproducing, just saying.
No, yeah, and I don't deny that there are there's a certain population of the LGBT that will engage in the surrogacy and all that kind of thing. But really, like, the problem with even that line of thinking is that it's not like an immediate process. It's not an easy process to go through surrogacy. It costs money. You have to go through your selective process of like who you want to bear and nurture your child in the womb. And
That's
then
true, but we could just make that easier. But but
it's not, and a lot of women don't want to do surrogate mother. They don't want to go through a surrogacy. A lot of women would rather.
I don't want to make any moms go through surrogacy that don't want to. But
there's a very small percentage of women that are willing to do that.
Let me see if this is where you're getting at. So the reason that promoting LGBT ideology in schools is bad is because it will encourage more people to feel comfortable identifying as queer, and therefore they will reproduce less. Is that your?
That's effectively the argument. Yeah, and operating.
Would it bad faith to me to say you want to groom kids into being straight?
I wouldn't call it. I wouldn't call it grooming, but I would advocate to discourage and even eliminate LGBT ideology to everybody, and that we should be taught, heteronormative sexuality of just one man, one woman. And there's studies to show that even if we are to humor the surrogacy, the in vitro fertilization, whatever it may be, that when it comes to homosexual families, the outcomes of these children is negative across the board in relation to the standard heteronormative nuclear family of one man and one woman within the confines of marriage. Every metric of negative outcomes is worse in non-heteronormative families.
Just as a quick thing, it's going to be really rare that I'll interject on like a fact thing because I'm not here to do that. But I'm pretty sure that's incredibly wrong. But not even wrong because gay people are better, but gay people are selected for to be parents because you have to go through the adoption process versus heterosexual couples, like the worst parents in the world can have children. I'd be curious. I don't normally like to pull a study, but I'm almost like entirely.
Yeah, I don't typically like to either.
You have so little faith in
this. I shared 2 studies in our group chat, so
okay,
we can go through either of them if you want. Really, they did studies. Albeit a relatively small sample size in one of them, but they compared 80 heteronormative families to 80 non-heteronormative, and they did 40 male on male, like 2 fathers, and then they did 40 mother on mother, and they found that 77 out of 80 of the non-heteronormative families had worse outcomes for the children by every metric, by education, by income, by crime rates, by depression, all of it. So there's no argument. It's not backed up by any
meta-analysis of more data seems to point to the fact that like gay families do tend to be on par with straight families.
By what metric?
By like any other metrics, like the happiness of the children, how like their crime rates, like how well they do in school.
Okay, so if I'm being forced to prove my
relationships with other people, like so it seems to be pretty neutral across the board. And even if it were the case that like there was a
I shared my study. Do you have a study for what you're saying?
Give me a second to like.
I don't want to do a study. I don't want to do a study, bro. Debate. I really don't.
But so let's.
But the data
I'm very
does support
confident
my side.
I'm very confident that the vast majority of the data would support me. But let's say that you're correct. Just because a certain type of family would be worse, like on aggregate, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have that type of family. Like, would you want to outlaw every single type of family that would be suboptimal?
Well, again, if we're operating in a consequentialist framework.
So you can probably say that, like, someone born into a rich family are going to have way better outcomes for the kids than someone born into a very poor family. So if we were to go by that logic, would you outlaw, like, poor people having children?
No,
of course not. That would be ridiculous.
But there's something. Just
because a family is suboptimal doesn't mean you should, disallow it from existence.
But we have data to support that this family structure is suboptimal, and if we advocate for more of this type of ideology which leads to this family structure, as a consequentialist, why would you, or as any form of utilitarian outcomes-based morality, why would you you can't justify advocating for this because it's going to result in negative outcomes for the children and overall less birth rates because we're going to have less core reproductive reproducing sex of the population. That's really the point here. Decreasing the birth rate is bad by every metric of morality.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
So a decreased birth rate bad, and also like I'm not buying this argument. So
what are you not buying?
The data. I do not believe the data is on your side based on this one study.
Okay, then I guess I guess we can do a study bro debate if you want.
We can do a study bro debate, but that's not what I was here to talk about. I wasn't.
Okay, that's not what I was here to talk about either. I'm just saying the data is on my side.
I just want to be clear real quick. So as much as we might not want to do a study bro debate, if we are debating this based on whether or not it's a good outcome for society, it kind of rests on the data, right? Because I think, Jangles, you would accept probably that if it was the case that adopting into homosexual families produced really negative results for children, you'd probably say, okay, well, maybe this doesn't need to happen, right? And then I would... What?
If it produced really negative results, as a whole, you could say with statistical certainty, we're gonna have very negative results.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not kind of what he's saying. If it's slightly worse than a heteronormative,
sure. And then also for Shapiro, if it was the case that children placed into like homosexual families either performed on par with or significantly better than heterosexual families, I imagine you'd say, okay, well, this isn't a good argument. You would abandon that, right?
That would be one part of the argument that I would have.
Okay, yeah. So in this part of the argument, I think it's probably pretty important that we understand the data because that's really the only point of disagreement. You can't really. Yeah.
So I would say it's only one aspect of the argument I'm making, because regardless
so
of if
in a really quick
regardless
research, I
of
found
if it's
a
better,
meta-analysis.
hang on, regardless of if it's better or worse for the children in terms of that societal outcome, it does result in a sect of the population that is not going to be reproducing naturally, and we're going to have to jump through hoops and go through these extra processes in order to find surrogate mothers and in vitro fertilization, which it's not going to cover the declining birth rate. It would be much easier if we just reduced the population that is not reproducing and had them reproducing again. Like it's actually pretty simple.
Do you think? I'm actually curious. Do you think that like, if I did not have the option to enter a relationship with another man, and I was like forced to be in a relationship with a woman, do you think that would be a good family structure? That it would be healthy, happy?
Yes.
No, no, not even a little bit.
Well, I mean, like there is a thing called like motherly
love. Could you be in a
love.
relationship with someone who you are absolutely not attracted to, have no romantic attraction to, have no sexual attraction to?
Oh, no, I'm not. So I wouldn't want to force you to be in a relationship, but I'm saying like if we're to choose between a hetero and a homosexual relationship, like I'm going to say the hetero relationship is better. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of making this assumption that like if you don't allow people to be gay, then they'll just choose to be straight and have children, but that's not going to happen. You kind of just admitted that like you can't force me to be in a relationship with someone that I don't love or I'm not attracted to.
So it's not a matter of forcing.
So you're not switching it into like, well, I'm not going to have kids, but now I am going to have kids. You're just kind of saying, oh, you're just going to be.
So
in a worse
it's not a matter of
place.
forcing, though. It's a matter of not putting out this information on a broad societal scale, like in schools, like part of our school curriculum, not flaunting it on billboards or in corporations and things like in their advertisements, things like that. That way it doesn't. That way it doesn't. Hang on. That way it doesn't become normalized as a behavior, and then we don't see such an increase in the population of homosexuals that are not reproducing. That's effectively the argument, because it results.
How does that not fly in the face of like the?
How
does this not fly in the face of like the founding principles of the country of like freedom and self-expression and individuality? How does this not fly in the face of that?
Well, I mean, again, you can apply the Constitution as like some sort of guiding light to your moral philosophy, but effectively in a progressive worldview, you're always going to have to be reasoning consequentially. You're always going to have to be considering the outcomes.
So speaking of the outcomes, I've been trying to like find some data, and it seems like I found two meta-analyses that contradict yours.
What do you got?
So I put them both in chat.
What are we looking at?
So one meta-analysis, this one was from 2018, found that there was no, so a meta-analysis, a total of 19 studies. Results confirm previous studies in this current body of literature suggesting that children raised by same-sex parents fare equally well to children raised by heterosexual parents.
Which study are we looking at? I don't know which one you're looking at.
Sorry, the first one. So that was the first link. The one from 2008.
It's not a link. Hang on, it's not. Can you send it in a link form so I can look it up with you?
Wait, I did, didn't I?
It's not.
Fuck, it says fuck. No, yeah, it's a PDF. Here's the title. Google search this title. Here's the title of the first one I sent you. Google search that. And I think the second one, I guess the second one should still work. Here's the title of the second one. You can Google search that as well. So both of these are meta-analyses that seem to point opposite to what you're saying.
Hang on a second.
Did I kill him?
He's retrying.
I don't know what happened there, but okay. And I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah, the second one, that second meta-analysis actually sees that, like, gay fathers, like homosexual, have like better outcomes, but that's a result of like more self-selection and higher incomes.
Right. Is there anything that points to homosexuality leading to an increase in the birth rate? Is there any way we can even reason this logically?
No, of course not. But I don't share this moral framework that like an increase in birth rate is intrinsically good, and also I don't think that
let's talk
this
about
factor
that.
is a
Let's
big.
talk about
this
that.
is not a big factor.
Maybe you didn't
understand
understand. Maybe you didn't understand why I mentioned it. But effectively, we've got societal infrastructure. We've got supply lines to maintain. We've got medical technology. We've got hospitals. We've got police forces, roads, food supply lines, farms. All these things that require bodies to maintain. Manufacturing plants. No matter how automated it gets, we always need people to maintain the supply lines and the infrastructure.
That's true, but wouldn't
a
low birth rate fix itself? There'd be fewer people, and therefore fewer people.
Then the supply lines collapse.
Supply lines might
Yeah,
collapse.
yeah. I mean,
But I really doubt that. We had supply lines when the population was like a tenth of what it is now.
right, but it
So we
requires.
still had those supply lines. I don't see this as a very good argument.
Okay, so
in your
would
favor.
you okay, hang on. So do you argue then that decreasing the birth rates are good?
No.
Okay.
I
well,
don't place any
because
sort of, I don't place
think about
any
this.
sort of like moral weight on birth rates like you
Well,
see.
this is the thing. If
And it doesn't.
in
And again,
China,
the
in China
topic that we're talking
alone,
about, the queer
in China
identities-
alone, they're projected to decrease by like half their population by 2050, and that's
Wait,
500 million people alone.
I'm sorry. What
If we had a
country did you
war,
say?
if we China.
China.
It-
So
it- the-
China basically.
Okay, hang on a minute. If we had a war where 500 million people got killed, that would be the most catastrophic, disastrous, bloody war. More combined casualties than every other war in recorded human history combined.
I just
If we
want
lose
to.
500.
I'm so sorry. Just to break in, this is like very interesting. Have you? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Did you read either of the studies that you linked earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, so for the first
What am I
one,
missing?
I keep seeing this phrase, and I might just be stupid, okay? But it sounds to me like this wasn't comparing homosexual parents with heterosexual parents. It's comparing heterosexual parents with other families where the parent had had a same-sex relationship.
Oh fuck! Actually, is that study?
Yeah, so I'm reading this.
Was
So,
it-
like,
was they-
the
were they
weighted
divorced?
screener data, a national representative sample revealed that 1.7% of Americans between the ages of 18 and 39 report that their father or mother has had a same-sex relationship. It keeps using this language just for the first words, because I dug this through inside. I'm just reading it, and it uses this phrase a lot. So I don't think these were actually from homosexual households. That sounds really weird to say, but like
Well,
from households with
either
two
way-
different. Yeah, I'm just saying that technically it's a pretty different thing than like a
Well,
parent that
either way,
had
it
had
doesn't
a.
change the argument. It doesn't change the argument. Like when we've got children of parents that are either currently homosexual or have been homosexual in the past, whichever one it is, we're seeing negative outcomes.
We're seeing
as
negative
compared
outcomes
to-
with this one study, but I sent you two meta-analyses that seem to point. In
But
the opposite
again,
direction.
I'm trying to just argue this logically, even that
So
because
it
really
is
nobody
super
wants to
important
sit
for your
there.
point,
Nobody
because
wants to sit there
regardless
and
of whether or
study
not we have
birth
good
rate. They really
outcomes,
don't.
you're focused on birth rates. So it doesn't matter what the outcomes are in your scenarios. You're kind of like
Say it
making a
again?
point that you don't. So it seems
No,
like
no,
it
I'm
wouldn't
pointing
matter.
to that, but I don't want to get bogged down by study bro debates. I was just pointing that out, but I'm saying the overarching point is that the birth rate decline is what the problem is. A global birth rate crisis is what we're facing right now, and we are on the front end of it, so it's a very new age talking point. But
So why in like
it
countries like
is a serious
Japan-
problem that LGBT ideology adds to, because
But
we've got
it doesn't
non-reproducing
seem to. Like,
sections of the
there are other
population.
countries like, so if you look at like Japan has a problem with the declining birth rates and people
Yeah.
not wanting to get in relationships, and they don't like have a super like queer positive, a queer affirmative like culture. So it doesn't seem like this factor matters all that much in what you're talking about.
Okay, I don't
There's
know.
so many other.
I don't,
There's
I don't
so
know,
many other
I don't
things
know
that are more important that you would have to go through before you got down to like the queer identities as being.
I don't know
thing.
I don't know the exact like populations of LGBT or whatever in Japan and other countries. I can only reference the United States. But what I do know is that the United States is below its birth rate replacement, and when we've got 20% of our younger generation who are in economics aside, their financial situations aside, they're just unwilling to even reproduce. Maybe it's
You're
not the full
You
20%.
don't know that. They're
Well,
not unwilling to reproduce.
if you are a homosexual, you're incapable of reproducing with your sexual partners.
Yeah, I can also
And it's not.
And so
yeah.
I can also adopt one of those kids who are born into a heterosexual family that turns out wasn't very good for them. So I can still help.
Right, but adoption doesn't solve our
it
birth
doesn't
rate
increase
problem.
the birth rate, but it
Adoption does. Yeah,
I mean,
adoption
Wait, just so
doesn't
that I
increase the
can
birth
understand
rate.
the argument, are we saying that if we make, wouldn't technically, just a question, this is the only question I swear, and then you can discuss. If we like outlawed the gays and then we had like these gay dudes stealthily marrying straight women, wouldn't that be worse? Because now we've taken a possible healthy breeding woman mare from the population of heterosexual men that might fuck her and fill her full of babies, and now she's got some closeted gay husband that won't have sex with her because he's like turned off. Isn't that like a bad thing, or just a question?
Well, I mean, I've made it clear I wouldn't advocate to force men to go and marry people that they don't want to marry.
But you haven't fixed the problem. If people can't identify as gay, if they can't come out, I mean, they're not. You haven't like, oh well, since they can't do that, then now they're gonna breed, right?
I'm not sure.
If
I don't
you
understand the
outlaw-
question.
If you outlaw homosexuality or make it so like no one's going to identify as gay, you haven't fixed the problem, because those people aren't going to then, well, can't be gay, I guess I got to have get me a wife and pump a baby into her. It's not
Right,
like
but do you
switched them over to
think that if we lowered the societal normativity of homosexuality, that we would see more or less homosexuals?
we would see a lot less, and we wouldn't
Exactly,
see any
that's my
less
point.
homosexual.
So I'm not-
like the exact same
I'm not
amount of
even
people would be
advocating-
homosexual, but they wouldn't be identifying as gay, and to be a lot
I'm not
more
even
miserable.
advocating that we. I'm not even advocating that
fucking
we
miserable.
outlaw it or force people to, be in heteronormative relationships and force them to have kids and things like that. I would advocate to incentivize that. Don't get me wrong, but most importantly, advocate to remove this societal norm of just tolerance and acceptance, because what it really means is like we're just trying to push this on, especially when we're talking to reel it back into the original debate topic, when we're trying to push it on younger generations, on kids, on kindergartners. We are normalizing it so that when they grow up, it's just part of life. It's part of life now.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That's fantastic.
Okay, but what's
your
actually
society,
good about it? You just say it's
what's
awesome,
actually
but you
good
don't-
because
what's-
my reasons. Like, do you think
Yeah,
that
that's
gay?
it.
Do you think that gay and trans people are happier with increasing normalization of our lifestyles? Do you think that that statement is true?
You could say that short term there's increased pleasure, for sure. I'll grant you that, because you're gonna be like, oh, if I'm allowed to have sex with who I want to have sex with, and I'm being accepted by society, and these are great. Okay, fine. But
not just
I'm
about
speaking
sex,
more on a broad,
right?
long-term on a broad
Yeah.
broad
Are
spectrum.
Are you in a relationship right now? You don't have to answer.
Yeah, I'm married.
You're
Good
married.
woman.
Okay, so are you very happy that you're married? Is there more? Does that bring more to your life other than just having sex with this person? Is there more value to your life added to that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, exactly, absolutely. So it's not
But
short term.
but again,
It's not short term, it's
you
long
got to
term.
keep in mind.
That's a meaningful
Hang on,
part
you
of your
you
life.
have to keep this in mind, man. You have to keep this. Is that I'm a Christian. I operate under Christian morality, Christian deontological ethics. I'm commanded to seek out a companion, a female companion, be fruitful and multiply to serve God, our Creator. And again, I'm not pushing that on you because I understand
You
you
very
don't
much are.
believe in that. No,
you
because
very
I'm
much
not.
are.
I'm not. But I'm saying when you ask me, like, is there more to that? Well, yes, it's because it aligns with my faith.
Yeah,
But
and there's
you
way
don't
more
hold the
to
same
like
thing.
my
Yeah.
relationship than
Yeah.
just
So
having sex.
what more is there? What more is there?
Yeah, I have a companion that I absolutely love. I love spending time with them. I love phone calls that I get interrupting the debate. I love spending time with them. I love the meaning and value that they have to my life. Like, there's a way more to
Yeah.
to
Why
my
can't you
relationship
just do
than
that
sex.
with them as a friend and then have like
Because
a
there's
female
more.
companion, a female
Because I want
partner.
more than that. Like that like I'd be great if they were my friend, but also that you have to, like, you would agree that like being friends with a
Would you
woman is
still-
different than being in a relationship with her.
Let me
And
ask you,
and
would
that
you
second
still,
one adds a
uh,
lot to your life.
So would you still be comfortable in your relationship if you couldn't have sex with your partner?
No, sex is awesome.
Okay.
Have you ever had
Okay,
it?
so
It's
that's
awesome.
that's the point. That's the point. Is that
Well,
all
yeah,
of these
sex
things
is
all of these
awesome. It's
things are
part of
good.
it, but
Hang
it's
on,
not
hang
the
on.
only
All of these
thing.
things are good. Hang on. All of these things are good that you're talking about: companionship, friendship, support systems, someone to talk to, all these things. Okay, that's great. But you can have all of that in just a normal friendship. What you're saying is the exclusive kicker that is required for the relationship you want is sex. You need the sex, otherwise it's not like why even be in this relationship?
Wait, can I ask
no,
you a clarifying
there's way more to
question?
it than
Is the only
sex,
difference
but-
between a romantic relationship and just a friendship, is it just sex?
No, there's way more to it than
Wait,
that.
no,
I would
I'm
say there's way
asking
more to it than
Shapiro.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would say that. I mean, it's kind of a long answer. I don't want to be too long winded with that.
Well, because the
It's-
implication right now is that, like, essentially the only thing separating a gay relationship and a friendship is just sex, and then other's all
I
else
think-
equal. But that seems.
I
Yeah, I'm just
think
curious.
I think for Jangles that is consistent. That holds true.
Wait,
for,
what?
Like you said, all of these companionships and all of the friendships things are good in your relationship, but you wouldn't want to be in it if there was no sex.
Well, no. I'd still very much want to be in it. I just
okay.
like
Maybe I misunderstood you.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So no, I very much would still want to be in it, but I do like sex. It's fun.
Right, but would that
it's
be a
it's
deal breaker? if
definitely
you
a
couldn't?
perk, but there's way deeper there than just like, oh, here's a friend that I can have sex with. There's something way deeper than there.
Would it be a
You're
deal
married,
breaker if you couldn't have
understand
sex?
that, right?
Would it be a
Huh?
deal breaker if you couldn't have sex?
Couldn't have sex, we'd work it out.
So it wouldn't be a deal breaker?
No, of course no. I love my husband very, very, very
Okay.
much.
Okay,
Beyond the
that's
wiener
fine.
touches.
Maybe I think I
That's how we do
misunderstood
it.
you. I'm not sure. Like,
Hey,
if
maybe I
just
misspoke.
misspoke or whatever, or maybe I misunderstood. I don't know.
So can you at least grant me that argument that, like, so maybe trans people and gay people who can live their lives the way they want, who can have this like identity, who can like fulfill relationships that are more meaningful to them, our lives are made happier by that. So and you're
in
going
the short term, yeah, I'm
in the
granting you
long
that.
term as well.
No, because the decline in the birth rate that we're going to see from this normalization is going to be a net negative outcome for society, and that's not good by any standard of morality.
If we had an increase in birth rate, but people were more miserable, is that still a net positive to you? If we had more people that were more miserable, would that be a net positive?
Well, I just don't think that would. I would say it really depends on how you actually measure what miserable even means. But I just don't think that even follows from just increasing the birth rates and because you can look at the rates of depression before we had widespread LGBT in our population, and they were lower. Like people weren't quite as depressed, and not to say that it's directly caused by that, but it's certainly a correlatory factor. It's
not a correlatory factor. Everyone's more depressed. Straight people are more.
Yeah,
depressed.
I understand that, but you can still point. You can still point to like depression rates have increased. Also, this thing has increased. We can point to it as a potential correlatory factor. I believe that there's studies to show that people that are more sexually promiscuous, as opposed, and whether it be through hetero or homosexual, as opposed to just their heteronormative counterpart that is only engaging in sexual intercourse with their wife.
I would actually agree with that. Yeah, people who are very promiscuous tend to have there are exceptions, but
be more depressed, right?
Happy. So let's let us get married. That way we're going to be monogamous.
No, I'm saying when I say promiscuous, maybe I should be more specific. Like I'm saying sexually promiscuous or deviant from the norm, the historical norm of just one man, one woman. And it's shown that these people are on average more depressed than their heteronormative counterparts that are just engaging in sex within marriage.
Do you think the gayness, like the actual attraction, like same-sex attraction, do you think that's causing the depression, or do you think like the societal backlash?
I think it's
or of like referring to your orientation as deviant.
Yeah, no, I think
more to do with it.
To say, okay, is it the gayness itself? I don't think I would word it that way, but I would say that homosexuality is a product of sexual deviation and almost like a worship of your sexual pleasures. And I would say the same thing.
That is the way I do it.
Yeah, exactly. So you're admitting to it. That's fine. It's not exactly a gotcha, but like I would say the same thing about anybody who's like sexually promiscuous is like they love the feeling of having sex. It's like a large portion, a large part of their life and their perceived happiness, but it's also associated with these negative mental states.
I'm worried that your needs aren't being met.
Why?
Because the way you're describing sex is like this gross thing that like can't.
Well, but I mean, I do consider any form of homosexuality or promiscuity to be disgusting. Yeah,
that's fine. I would never make you have gay sex. There's some reciprocity that is not being granted here. I never want to You absolutely do want to force like these ideas on children. And to impact how they
heteronormativity, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you want to enforce those on children, but when people are like enforcing gay ideology, imposing gay ideology, it's a neutral statement. They're just saying they're not saying you ought to be gay, you ought to be trans, you ought to be queer. It's not. It's saying that it's okay to do those things. It's just giving the option. This is not a negative option. So there's no reciprocity here. Like I get my way, you still get to live your life the way that you want.
No, I don't,
because
again we've got now 20. What's going to happen? What if 30 years from now, we've got 50% of our population that is some form of LGBT. And let's say a good chunk of that is just gay or lesbian, like a non-reproducing sect of the population. Let's say it's like 30, 40%. We've got 40% of the people that are literally just unwilling to reproduce on top of the hetero people that are also not willing to reproduce. And we're only going to have like 20, 30% of people actually making babies.
Wait, can we something? Real quick. Wait, hold on. Whoa. I'm the moderator. Okay, hold on. One thing that you guys are both kind of circling around that I think you need to address, because I think you probably fundamentally disagree with this, but it's pretty important, is it sounds like Zen believes that by perpetuating kind of like LGBT acceptance, that you're going to in turn create more LGBT people. I think you guys need to address this because it's a central point, I think, to what Shapiro is arguing.
Yeah, I would say, well, I'll be quick here, I promise. I would say that as time has gone on from, say, 100 years ago, or like the baby boomer generation, where LGBT ideology was not part of the norm of society and we had very little LGBT population, and now that it's become more normalized and more popularized, more tolerable, more accepting, we've got an increase in the population. So I could only assume that by increasing the tolerance to it, we're going to see more people engaging in it.
I can sort of agree with that. You're not creating more gay people or more trans people. It's just people feel more comfortable like being out and open about their, what's going on inside their souls.
Right. So but do we accept the general premise that more accepting a society that's more accepting of the ideology will have more people engaging in the ideology. Do we accept that premise?
Yeah, definitely. Like,
Wait, hold on,
okay.
Jangles. Wait,
Almost
no,
not
wait. Hold on, wait. I don't know if you understand what you, or maybe you're agreeing to it. So he's saying that like more LGBT acceptance in society is turning people gay. Do you believe that?
No.
Okay, that's
no,
what
that
he's
is not
arguing
what
for right now.
No. I'm saying
no.
it's leading to more people engaging in the.
But what you're
like-
saying is that without the promulgation of that ideology, there would be more straight people. That it's
Yeah,
effective-
I would say that for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm disagreeing with that.
Okay,
So
that's what's being put forth here. Yeah.
So do you
I
think
thought I
that people are
explicitly
born
said-
gay?
I thought
or
I
what?
explicitly said that, like, yeah, if it's more.
You think that people are born gay?
Accepted, huh?
You think people are born gay?
I think yeah.
Okay, why do you think
that's
that?
really it's reductive, but yeah,
Why do you think that?
because it doesn't seem you don't seem to be able to meaningfully like choose your sexuality. Like, could you?
Why do you think that?
Because I've tried.
Okay,
I
that's
grew
it.
up in-
That's anecdotal.
So I grew up. I grew up in that.
what-
So I grew up in
like-
that heteronormative environment. I was not exposed to gay ideology. I was exposed to the exact opposite. Never really worked.
No, but that doesn't follow that just because you were never exposed to gay ideology, yet you still turned out gay. It doesn't follow that you were born that way. That would imply that there's some sort of like genetic, there's some sort of genetic component
yeah.
here.
So
like,
here's
you believe
where
that people are
conversation's
like
always bad because
upon
like,
their conception that they are
So
they
the
have gay
fact-
genes in them.
So it is biological by the basis that we do it, but that biological people are engaging in it. This genetic argument is weird because like trying to figure out like nature versus nurture is like trying to like figure out whether the length or the width is more important when determining the area of a rectangle. You get really, really bogged down there. The important thing is I don't think people make the conscious choice. I am going to be attracted to anything. Like make the conscious choice to be attracted to something that you're not attracted to now. It doesn't really work. You can't.
You don't
can't
think
really
that
work
people
at it.
can choose? You
When
don't
I-
think people can control their sexual attractions?
In terms of like suppressing them, yeah, but like reorienting yourself, no.
You don't think it's a choice by any means, by any
I think
measure?
I think it's a choice to be out and open and identify with these things, but the actual like orientation that you're talking about, no.
Okay, so the problem that I take
and-
major issue with this because, I mean, you could just point, like, we could just logically reason this, that there's like some sort of biological imperative. There is, on a very basic instinctual level, that all living beings have the desire to survive and to reproduce. And reproduction would necessarily entail heterosexuality in terms of humans.
the impetus like sex drive is
hang on, and I'm wondering, like, is there any science to back up the idea that this actually is
Yes, a
that,
ton
that
of
being
science.
that being gay is a genetic condition?
If
You're
it
born
wasn't
this way?
genetic, hold on. If it wasn't genetic or biological, what would it be? Supernatural?
No,
Ethereal?
a choice. A choice.
Well,
Being
choices
gay
are
is a choice.
biological. You make choices with your brain, which is a biological.
Oh, sure,
argument.
but you have faculties of reason. You have faculties.
You have
to,
faculties.
like,
Yeah, but like again,
but you can't
No,
really account
there's
for those.
all
There's
the
like
scientific
there's like
evidence
social
in-
science behind this too, but like
yeah, a lot of social science, a lot of genetic science,
Yeah.
a lot of biological science. So like, no, you do
Right.
not choose your sexual orientation to
But
any
a
meaningful
but a
degree.
social science like psychology or sociology would be like your faculties of thought, your faculties of reason, your sexual urges, things like that, whatever it may be. Like it's I would argue that being gay is absolutely a choice, and being straight. I mean, I think being straight is the default. Just
So,
because that's
so I'm
how
gonna give you a
our
really easy
biology is
question.
constructed, so we can reproduce. But people choose to be gay, and people choose to be promiscuous. People choose to be celibate.
Those are three
whatever
very
it may
different
be.
things. All right, here's a very easy question. I'm making it easy for you because
Go
I'm
ahead,
pretty
go ahead.
I'm pretty hot. Can you be attracted to me right now?
If I wanted to choose to, if I wanted to engage in a sexual lifestyle, I could. But no, I'm not attracted to you or any man.
So you're not. But
Hold on, wait. I want to
to
just draw a distinction while you guys talk about this. There is a difference between engaging in sexual activity versus having an attraction. Let's be clear, because I noticed we're
Yeah,
getting a little
obviously.
bit.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah. And I
like
would
anybody
say-
could choose to engage in sex with anybody. They might not like it, but they could do it. But there's a difference between that and the attraction. So let's make sure we're keeping these two things separate.
So yeah, I think there are certain attractions that people hold to that are largely beyond their control. But in terms of why we are naturally and biologically attracted to women, for the sake of the illustration here, is that men are attracted to women because we're seeking out fertility in our mates, and women have large breasts. That implies that they're going to be able to feed your potential offspring. They have wider hips, bigger butts, because that points to a woman that can bear and nurture a child and maintain an upright posture throughout the 9-month pregnancy. And then other feminine traits of the personality we're attracted to just because that's like, just the feminine.
I'm having trouble following the argument. I'm having trouble following your
what did you
here.
miss about what I just said?
No, in
Men
terms
are
of,
attracted to signs of fertility.
Yeah, I'm saying like you have this like lizard brain argument over here where we're driven by our base.
Okay, why do men like big boobs?
The reason that we are like attracted to women is because big breasts we need to
Why?
reproduce.
Why else would we be?
Hold on, but also on the other side, you're saying, well, we have the faculties of logic and reason, and we can go beyond our base desires.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
Like, it seems like you're talking about both sides of your mouth.
But our primitive nature is going to attract us to a mate that is potentially a fertile mate for us, somebody that can bear our children. That's why we're attracted to big boobs. Do you have an alternative explanation for that?
For like, I think a lot of like your sex drive is based in biology, of course, and I do think that there's like that's.
Well, is there an alternative explanation other than
however that
seeking a
sex
mate?
drive, that's impetus to like get your PP touched can manifest itself in many different ways.
Right, but what is this sex drive based in? Is it are we seeking fertile mates or are we just seeking a hole?
All right, pleasure first and foremost. Why do you think sex feels good?
Okay,
why do you think our lizard man brain thinks that sex
okay, so you are
feels good?
seeking maximum pleasure. You're seeking maximum pleasure for
think
society
that's where sex,
or just yourself?
Do you disagree that that's where sex drives come from?
I would argue.
Caveman brain. Do you think people had sex because they wanted to increase their population, or do you think they had sex because sex feels real good?
I think sex is a primitive biological imperative that people hold by their basic instinct to reproduce.
And one of the reasons that it's so effective is that sex feels really good.
That is one. There is one that's an incentive to sex. It feels good. That's fine. But the reason that because you can look at animals in the wild, and I don't want to make like a naturalistic fallacy or whatever it's called here, but like
you can look at animals in the wild, and some of them are gay.
Animals, hang on, that's a very, very small percentage of animals.
Wait, hold on. I'm really confused by that last statement. You said you don't want to make a naturalistic fallacy, but
isn't
your entire argument technically like function is following form? Like we are shaped in a certain way, therefore we ought to behave in a certain way?
I'm just giving an explanation for. I'm not saying that's why we ought to do it, but I'm giving an explanation for why we do it. That's I'm not making an ought claim here. I'm just saying
gotcha.
like why are men attracted to women with big boobs? Because big boobs are signals for fertility. Like that's just simply
Also, just on a quick science fact, big boobs
ahead.
have nothing to do with being able to like breastfeed or right? There's like no correlation.
No, it just points to. No, I agree and I understand that, but it
just
just points to like there's a psychological and a biological imperative here of like big boobs says woman that could feed my child. That's the deepest primitive.
Yeah, so
instinct
you've made the is statement. I can sort of kind of agree with a lot of the is statements you are, but your
hang on real quick.
But your ought statement, your ought statement logically that's the impetus of your argument because this is the way we're biologically wired. That means that we.
No, that's not the ought. I'm not making that ought statement.
So why ought we pursue
Can I finish what I was saying about
relationships?
the animals in the wild? They don't exactly receive pleasure from sex. I mean, some do. I think like dolphins do, and like others maybe. There's a few others you can name, but a large majority of animals in the wild, there's no indication that they're actually receiving pleasure from their sex. They're just doing it on a primitive, biological, instinctual level. Like they're just doing it to reproduce. So like that's it. That's what I'm arguing here. Like sex does feel good for us, sure, but we also have a biological instinct to reproduce with a fertile mate.
If you had to put a percentage on it. What percentage of sex do you think is had in the modern day that is for the explicit purpose of reproduction? Yeah,
less than 50% for sure. Probably less than even 30%.
Probably less than 0.1%, right?
No, I don't. I wouldn't agree with that. There's a lot of people that are okay. Let me be clear. Because like married couples can have sex like a bunch of times and only get pregnant once. So like I don't know, like, but a lot there's a good chunk of the population that is celibate until marriage, and they only have sex with the intent to start a family. So and to I guess to show love to their partner, their husband or their wife.
So there can be something deeper to sex than just it feels good. Like you can use it to like be closer to your partner. It's not just this raw pleasure thing.
Right. Well, but I would argue. But again, operating in my own worldview, I argue that the love you showed to your partner is through the power that God gave you to show love to your partner within the confines of the marriage. So I'm not going to adhere to the same what is beyond pleasure and reproduction that you would hold. You know what I mean?
All right.
Like I don't agree that you are actually loving your partner when you're engaging in sodomy.
Okay. Well, we agree to disagree.
I think it's just pure lust. I think it's just masturbating your dick into another man's ass. It's gross.
Now hold on, flip it around, okay? That's what's happening to me. Get it right. So without making a naturalistic fallacy or appealing to God that you can't force anyone else to believe in, why is it bad for gay people to exist? Without resorting to a naturalistic fallacy.
Okay. And so why is it bad for gay people to exist? Be very careful with the language there. I would never advocate to kill gay people, to cause any physical harm to them. So just I'm making that very clear. Why is it bad? Obviously, from the Christian worldview, just because it's wrong, commanded by God. But in the consequentialist, progressive, utilitarian worldview that I'll humor here is that it's going to lead to societal outcomes that are a net negative because of the decrease in birth rate that would result from the increase in a population that is not reproducing by their own unwillingness.
But you've kind of admitted that, like, just because someone is not allowed to identify as gay doesn't mean they're going to have children. You kind of conceded to that.
Wait, what did I concede to?
That just because someone is not allowed to identify as gay, that they're not then going to go have children, right?
I'm not. Okay, so if somebody's not allowed to identify as gay,
then they must consequentially identify as straight and then go start a family.
Well, I'm saying that by not allowing the normalization of the lifestyle, we would have less people engaging in the lifestyle. And I would actually argue that because I'm arguing that it's a choice to be gay, and I don't believe that there's any evidence to argue that it is genetic or biological.
Otherwise, if it's not genetic or biological, what is it?
By having it less having a less prominent amount or a prominent acceptance of a homosexual lifestyle in society, we're going to have less people choosing to gravitate toward that lifestyle and choosing to have these and having these attractions. They're not even going to be triggered by it. Let me give you an example. If you are staring at a wall all day, or you're just working, working on spreadsheets. I don't know what you do for a living, and it doesn't matter. And you're not talking to anybody. You're just looking at reports and spreadsheets, sending emails and stuff. You're not really going to get like any. You might get bored and get sexually aroused or whatever, but think about that versus if you go to a gay bar where there's men dancing, and I don't know what you guys engage in there, but like there's men that are turning you on physically because you're attracted to them. And the hetero counterpart, if they go to a strip club and there's half naked women or even naked women dancing in their face, like in which scenario, that versus working an office job, are you going to get more sexual arousal? Are you going to feel the need
with all the people? I just don't know
exactly.
I don't know what your argument here is.
So compare this. If you've got a society that does not normalize the homosexual lifestyle, and a society that does normalize the homosexual lifestyle, and it's not just normalized, but put in your face, taught in schools, put in every single corporate ad, put in government statements. We're hiring LGBT cabinet members, things like that. It's everywhere in our society, and it's also shunned to be. I understand you think that, but it's also shunned if you are against that. Like I can't just go out and be like, "Hey, being gay is wrong," whatever. Like
it must be very hard for you.
I'm going to be shunned in society. I'm going to be cast out. All of this is true. So
I know. I'm very sorry for you.
If you've got one society that's encouraging it, one society that's not encouraging it, which ones are people going to be more triggered to be aroused by it? One that's encouraging it, the one that's normalizing it.
Do you think that
or it's everywhere in your face?
When I was absolutely shamed with no gay bars in rural Kentucky, no positive representations of gay people, no positive mention of any sort of queer identities whatsoever, do you think that I did not find dudes attractive?
I don't know what would trigger your attraction, and I'm not
seeing a dude.
I'm actually also really curious on the contrapositive of that. Shapiro, if you were to go to enough gay bars, do you think that would turn you gay?
I think it all stems from general sexual deviance from what society has historically taught. So like sexual liberation.
Yeah, but if you were forced to go to like a gay bar after gay bar after gay bar for like a couple months, do you think that would?
I think it would certainly increase my chances of becoming more sexually deviant, potentially homosexual.
Not sexually deviant. Yeah, gay. Okay, all right.
No. But understand what I'm arguing here is that like it all stemmed from first wave feminism and the first movement of sexual liberation, where we started to more normalize the promiscuous lifestyle. That was the first step. That was the first rung on this ladder, and then we moved to
Do you think women should vote?
Then or bisexuality, homosexuality, Then we moved to transgenderism and whatever else we're getting into now. What was your question there, Jangles?
Do you think women should vote?
No, I don't.
Okay, cool.
I think that voting should be a one family vote, and if you are not married to a woman, you shouldn't get to vote. So even men that are single shouldn't get to vote, with exceptions.
On one hand, I'm very
if your wife or
appreciative
husband, if your husband or wife dies or whatever, like that's different. But I think that
On one hand, I'm
families
very
that are
appreciative
married-
that we got to get to the actual root of the matter, but also
What's the root? What are you talking about?
The root of the matter, like a lot of people who defend these bills, the Don't Say Gay bills, the removing the sexual orientation discussions in classrooms, they'll try to couch it in language that just doesn't hold up to any sort of scrutiny, and what they're really meaning is being gay is bad. On one hand, I'm glad.
I'm open about
I'm
it.
glad
Being
he
gay
was
is
able
wrong.
to openly
Yeah.
admit I think being gay is bad. It actually made for a much more honest conversation.
Yeah.
But
No,
on the other
I
hand,
don't hide.
I don't
hide
think you're-
behind. Yeah.
Yeah. On the other hand, I sort of wanted to talk to the average person, the average conservative, and I don't think I got that. I don't think the average conservative thinks that women shouldn't vote.
Well, that's why conservatives lose, because they're pussies and they don't actually stand on the core beliefs that we ought to be pushing for as conservatives. There's not many people like me. There's not many people that are willing to go to these links, and it's unfortunate. But you're actually correct. Most conservatives aren't going to say what I say. A lot of conservatives might even vehemently disagree with me and agree with you. But that's why we lose. That's why we're losing ground. And really.
So you think if more conservatives came out and said that women shouldn't vote, you'd be winning?
I don't think that exclusively is what would help us win, but we would have. There's a deeper meaning behind that. There's a deeper argument, deeper discussion behind why women shouldn't just be able to vote, universally. It's not just simply if every single conservative today, all else being equal, said women shouldn't vote. No, that's not going to solve our problems. No, absolutely not.
You think biologically women shouldn't vote because there's not enough blood flow to their brains because their boobs are too big?
No, I think that they're just too emotional. I think they're emotional creatures.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. That's effectively what the sexual liberation did to us. Is it allowed women to be more vocal in society and feminize our population, and then we came up with people like Jangles who act like women. You act like a woman, but you're still allowed to vote. In my worldview, if women aren't allowed to vote, but you still are, we're still getting feminine, emotional, knee-jerk reactions in our voting block. So yeah, it's not going to solve our problems.
I apologize for how emotional I've been throughout this
No,
entire
you've actually been conducting yourself well in this conversation. I'll admit.
Wait, I gotta ask. I'm curious. What's wrong with injecting some emotion into your arguments of the way you vote? Right, your entire argument is essentially resting on it's a faith-based argument that's ultimately emotional from your point of view, right? You're not using the rational or logical part of your brain. You're engaging in a faith-based argument that rests purely on your emotional connection to God. If your meta ethics are informed by theology, ultimately that's an emotional position, right? Normatively, you've built this out of of course it is.
No.
How is it not?
Well, because I'm using my faculties of reason that God gave me.
What is the faculty of reason that tells you there is a God, though?
It's in virtue of his revelation.
Yeah, but that revelation that's a quality, that's an emotional experience you have. It's not a logical or reasonable one. Because if I push you
it's his revelation that gave me the faculties to reason logically and acknowledge his revelation, because he made me in a way that I can
let's employ some logic.
It's epistemically circular for sure.
So a demon just revealed to me that your God is fake. How do we resolve this dispute between the two of us?
Who's the demon
He told me not to tell you his name.
Okay, well then I guess there's no conversation to be had because I don't know who your demon is.
So do you understand the issue is that if you have a personal revelation that's only granted to you via subjective experience, and there's no way to externally validate it.
It's not subjective. He revealed it to everybody.
I don't have that revelation.
How do you know that?
I must have missed it.
Because a demon told me I didn't. How do you know I do?
Okay, but what are your ultimate faculties of reason that allowed you to determine that you don't have the revelation?
What are your ultimate faculties of reasons that allowed you to determine you do have a revelation? You're going to say it was the ones that God granted you with, and I'm going to say...
Hang on, that's a very bad faith. That's a very bad faith
it's
tactic.
Not...
To just spin the question back on somebody because you didn't have an answer.
Well, but that's if you understand that if you have fallen down a well of epistemic circularity, I'm always going to be able to spin it back on.
Everybody's epistemic foundations are circular.
Of course, but you're acting like you're not.
You end up.
Yeah, I agree with you, but the difference is you're pretending that yours aren't, or yours are somehow correct. But if
I'm not pretending that they're not circular.
So
I'm saying that God revealed his nature to us and made us in a way that we can observe his revelation. That is circular.
But if it's
That's how we
circular,
know
then
things.
it can't be
But
self-validating,
it's not.
right?
It's not viciously circular, and it actually follows. Like, and I'm admitting
Everything
that
follows circularly. That's why it's called circular. Of course, anything follows circularly.
So epistemic circularity is unavoidable. Anybody who's
Sure,
studied
but epistemic
epistemology at
circularity
all-
is ultimately pointless then, because I can, in a circular manner, I can epistemically justify literally any truth, right?
Right, but the problem is, like, what was your? I'm asking you, like, you've made the claim that you've got some sort of faculties of reason that you've been able to determine that you have not been given revelation from God. That would mean that there's some sort of necessary falsity to the Christian God.
No, there doesn't necessarily have to be. The burden of proof would lie on the person making the claim. If you're
No,
claiming revelation,
you made the claim. You said you have not received revelation from the Christian God. That entails the necessary falsity of the Christian God.
no, it doesn't.
What is the defeater?
Do you believe
Yes, it
that
does.
do you believe that you've received a direct revelation from the Matrix?
No.
Are you able to falsify the existence of the Matrix?
Yeah, in virtue of not the Matrix, it's the Christian God.
Okay. So, like,
Yeah,
your argument.
So
just to be clear,
what's your defeater? What's your defeater to the Christian God?
there is no defeater, right?
Okay,
But
then I
a
guess
defeater is
then-
not required because a claim that's presented without evidence can be dismissed without evidence, right? And the only evidence you
so
can
the claim-
provide is
so
your
the
own
claim that you have
subjective.
not. So the claim that you have not received divine revelation from the Christian God is a claim that is without evidence and will be dismissed without evidence by your own lights.
I don't have to provide evidence for a negative claim. You're the one making the positive claim. You're saying
So-
something has
no,
happened. I'm
no,
saying I don't think it's happened. So the
you've
burden
made a
of proof
positive
is on.
claim.
Okay,
Say I know that something is the case or is not the case is still a positive claim.
gotcha. Okay, Jangles, have you ever heard of
Why-
presuppositionalism?
If God really thought that like gay sex was immoral, why did he put the prostate where it is?
True.
That's actually a funny question, and I'm happy to answer it, assuming you're not operating in bad faith. Are you operating in bad faith?
I mean, I'm operating as in good faith as I can.
Why do so
someone
many
who,
guys like animate girls and feet? How does that help us reproduce?
No, these are like seriously legitimate questions, assuming they're not being just like. Like
I'm in
throwing
bad
out
faith right
spitballs
now.
or
I'm
something.
sorry. I'm being
Okay.
honest.
I mean, Jangles, do you actually want to know the answer to that, or are you just trolling?
No, because I don't believe that God exists, and you have.
Okay, so you were just okay. So it's a bad faith.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it was
Well-
a bad faith question, but on,
Well, I think
on the
I
face of
think
it,
I've
like,
gotten my point across. We've remained relatively civil here. I appreciate the moderation, Destiny, but
We-
I have a feeling if we continue, I'm going to start getting dogpiled in a bad faith manner. Admittedly, so like, do we want to get back on topic, or are we?
Sorry, we can go
you guys
back.
wanna
Go. I'm sorry, my bad. I jumped in.
I mean,
No, it's all- I'm not- it's
we've
all
kind of
good.
reached this point. Like he thinks that God exists through circular reasoning. He never has to prove that God exists at no point. Here's how I know that like
That's not the topic. Hang on, are we
I
getting
know,
back on
but,
topic, or are we not?
I know, but well, it's part of the topic because like your ultimate reason for why do you believe.
But
what you
I've been
believe is
willing this
because
whole
of this
time to
thing that
operate
you
in your
never have to
worldview.
prove.
I've been
So, like,
willing
what can I say?
I've been willing
Like,
this whole time to operate in your frame of reasoning without invoking the Christian God for any of it. I mean, like in my
you have a
perspective,
lot.
yes, I'm a Christian. So I'm
I think if I can
but-
if I can be the moderator
Yeah,
again,
go
I'm sorry, and not like be just
Yeah,
a
go
debater because I was. I think that the issue between you two is you're not going to be able to resolve the differences because I think there are a couple of fact-based claims here that would sway either of you if you're both being good faith. It would sway either of you if you were to acknowledge the truth behind these claims. But you both have fundamental disagreements, not fundamental disagreements, you both have factual disagreements. So it's kind of hard to go further. So the two big ones that seem to be brought up are one, that making LGBT stuff more common in society will make more people LGBT. And I think Jangles disagrees with that fact. And I think that's a pretty important fact. And then also that like children put into gay households are going to perform demonstrably worse across several metrics than children raised in heterosexual households.
I disagree with that second one being important because it wasn't important to his point. Whether that not,
Well,
uh,
ultimately you
just-
dropped
it
it,
was
but I
just
mean,
like a
like,
side-
whether or not
it was
gay
a side
relationships
point.
perform better or worse.
Sure,
than
but I
relationships
think
wasn't important
that-
to his point because they,
yeah, I think that
the word for it was
ultimately,
important.
if because he's trying to argue outside of the framework of some Christian argument, if he's trying to escape that, then all of the arguments that are ultimately going to be, I guess he says, consequentialist, are going to rest on the consequences of any particular like fact, like study or whatever. And it seems like you guys have disagreements of fact over that, so you can argue around it. But ultimately, I think either of you, if you're both acting in good faith, are going to be swayed if you agreed on those facts. But you don't, so I don't know if you guys you're
So,
mounting
let me-
more and more factual disagreements. So it's harder to go further in the argument without just like running in circles.
Let me maybe try just one quick new avenue. It's not even really related to what I was arguing initially. It's my typical line of reasoning and rationale for this kind of subject. Is that when we're talking about homosexuality and we're talking about gay lifestyle, whatever it may be, it's effectively a conversation about sexual morality. Is that fair? Like about the morality of sexual actions,
Essentially,
things like
yeah.
that. Okay. And you argue, then I don't want to straw man you, so correct me if I'm misrepresenting, but you argue that being gay is good or neutral in virtue of the fact that there's no observable harm that comes as a result of it. Is that correct?
Yep, there's no observable harm, and it brings a lot of like joy and meaning to my life. And
assuming
queer people.
Got it. So assuming that is a consistent principle, the question I have is like, could you apply that same line of reasoning in the scenario of like incest, like a consenting brother and sister that want to have sex, and there's no observable harm being done? Would you say that then incest should be permitted in your moral framework?
In that moral framework, I'm comfortable saying that like I don't think it's right because for circular reasoning, I think it's weird. I'm very comfortable not having a good argument for why I'm against that.
Well, do you understand why, given your moral philosophy on sexual morality, it actually follows that incest would be permissible as well?
Actually, I need to change my answer. God told me that incest is bad, and He told me that.
Jangles, that's not a good faith engagement, Jangles.
That is bad faith, but it's actually true. God did say that incest is bad, and that's why Christians are against it. But again, I mean, given your moral philosophy, and I think you're realizing that this is inescapable. If it's simply the case that libertarian, have sex with who you want to have sex with, as long as you're not hurting anybody else. Hey, two brother and sister want to have sex, you gotta let them, right?
Well, yeah, I haven't put a whole lot of thought into the morality of incest. I gotta be honest.
Okay, I mean, are you willing to put the thought in right now?
No, not really.
All right. You heard it here on Destiny Stream. Jangles is dodging the incest question. We all heard it.
Question.
Dodged it.
I dodged it in front of 6,000
I'm grandstanding that too. Take that as a win.
Yep.
I think just humor me here, Destiny. I think I've seen in the past, like, have you bit that bullet before, like essentially permission of incest, or?
I mean, there's like roundabout ways you can get around it. If we talk about generalizing a rule in society where incest is permissible, you might create scenarios where people with massively different ages or positions in the family are engaging in incest. So normalizing that behavior is probably not good. So for instance, if we say that two homosexual brothers that are of age can consensually have incest with each other, and that's fine. Well, maybe brothers and sisters start to do it. Well, maybe older brothers and younger sisters start to do it. Well, maybe fathers and daughters start to do it, and it kind of gets worse and worse as the behavior is normalized. So I think if you want to argue against incest, you can do it from that.
I think I'm actually agreeing with you. Like, when we start to normalize the behavior, more people start to engage in the behavior, and then there's potential negative outcomes from the behavior.
Yeah, but the normalization of behavior is we don't have strong biological drives against incest. We have really strong.
I think we do, actually.
We don't. It's proven. You don't. There's something called I think it's the Westminster effect. We have strong biological drives against people that we're raised with. So for instance, if I raise you with a step sibling at a very early age and you don't know that it's your sibling, you will have an incestual disgust against that sibling. But if I separate you from a sibling at birth and you meet them later in life and it's the opposite gender, you can be sexually attracted and have a normal sexual relationship. The effect that makes you grossed out about your siblings is it's a child rearing thing. It's not like a genetic component.
Right. Okay. I think just for the sake of not getting into like the weeds or whatever, I think I'll just accept that. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm good.
Your dog realizes that you're on to live.
Yeah, sorry, I had to mute there. But no, I think I've said pretty much all I need to say. I mean, you got anything else there, Jangles?
No, I think that argument about you have not supported the fact that like more queer people equals lower birth rates. There are 20,000 other factors that factor in before that. If you're actually concerned about birth rates, like queer identities are not meaningfully impacting the birth rates of any society. Otherwise, we would see like places like Japan where the birth rates are very low and they don't have a large acceptance of queer identities. There should be more of a correlative, if not causative, factor there. So I think that's a very weak argument. But like I said, I'm very glad that you just skipped straight to it. Being gay is bad. A lot of the people who try to defend these try to like skirt around the issue with arguments that are very, very terrible and in no way consistent. So I got to give you credit for that. You were at least you had the balls to actually say like, no, the reason I'm in support of these bills is because gay people are bad.
Okay, and let me just give a quick closing statement. I appreciate the conversation too. Just a quick correction. I don't think gay people are bad in any different nature that straight people or just anybody is bad. I think we all have just corrupt, sinful nature. But yeah, I mean, my overarching point is that that when we normalize a behavior that leads to a greater societal or a greater sect of the population that is non-reproducing, we're going to be adding to, by some extent, to some extent, a decrease of the birth rate. We're going to be adding to that problem. We have a global birth rate crisis. And again, by any metric, increased birth rates and more people is a good thing. If I'm to operate in the consequentialist worldview and even in the deontological Christian worldview, we're commanded to reproduce. So there's overlap there that I actually agree with. And frankly, I care more about the sustainability and the thriving human population on Earth than I care about the pleasure you get from gay butt sex. Really, that's the point.
So, last question, because I don't know if I ever got an answer, is if we suppressed all these queer identities, do you think that queer people would thrive in this environment?
Yeah, because I don't think it's genetic. I think it's a choice.
Well, okay, so if it's not, where does the choice come from if not genetics or biology? Like, I guess you think it's supernatural, like there's a demon inside of me.
Actually, I think on my at the foundation of my moral reasoning, I think there's some demonic and deviant influence of evil that invades people to be sexually deviant. So yeah.
Well, I will think very much about that demon invading me tonight.
Okay, so, I mean, I hope you repent in your sinful nature.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Okay. Well, hey, I mean, are we done then? I think like I said all I need to say. I appreciate you having me on here, Destiny. I appreciate the conversation there, Jangles. Can I shout myself out? Yeah. Okay. I'll just do it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the conversation, my name is Zen Shapiro. I'm a paleoconservative, in-house right-wing debater on the Crucible platform with Big Papa Fascist, also known as Andrew Wilson. And if you want to see more of me, you can find me on Twitter and YouTube. Just search up Zen Shapiro, just spelled like Ben Shapiro but with a Z. Zen Shapiro. And yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Okay.
All right. Peace, guys.
Peace.
Mask off, I promise they don't help. If I saw my son in the dress, then I'll go and get my belt. Look in the mirror and tell me what you think about yourself. You need a safe space. Sorry, I don't care about what you feel. I'm about to break the meter. Two-way got my heat up. Hey, I don't wear Nike, I only rock Adidas.